Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Mark My Brain. Today's episode will be a bit special, I'd say, because it will revolve just around a single question. This question popped up in my mind when one evening I was trying to fall asleep, and as per usual, I really couldn't. And out of nowhere, a question appeared: what makes a soul bleed? And it captivated me so much that at that point, falling asleep became almost impossible. So, of course, I had to ponder it. And the more I dug around and thought about it, I became fascinated with it. Um, Now, I'm coming to this issue not from a religious point of view, but from a more existential one. And I would like to begin by just reading you what I have written down, just free flowing thoughts about this question. Pointless struggle, your inability or unwillingness to change for better, living under a false pretense, willingly putting on a mask to hide your true self to the point of hiding so well you yourself don't remember who or what you are. A loneliness that's embedded so deep it's become part of the foundation of your life. Craving adventure but being forced to live in dullness, seeing the meaningful journey behind you but being unable to turn back, the grayness of existential course, the acid of unrealized ambition, and the decaying rot of dead dreams, forcing yourself into an empty action over and over again, putting on the infinite performance of obedience. But also seeing yourself hurt people you love the most, the realization of inability to be enough for someone you care about deeply, and being faced with an impossible choice where no matter what you do, someone will get hurt, maybe yourself. Yeah. Um, this is where my thoughts go when I ask myself this question. These are the mm, feelings or scenes that appear in my mind. I would be very interested in what you imagine when you ask yourself this question and when you think about it a little. And as you can see, for me, it's very, I would say, tied to the basic existential questions of finding purpose and fulfillment and not allowing your life to become just this gray smudge of nothingness. Uh, and of course, for me, that makes sense because those are the things I tackle in my life, being in my 20s. And of course, it's something I think about, not necessarily in this context, mm, but pretty regularly, of how to find fulfillment, how to uh, discover your purpose, how to design a life you will be excited to live, and whatnot. But from the last part, it's also apparent that it is tied this bleeding soul, or this image of bleeding soul is tied to some deep matters of heart, like hurting people you love, or not being enough for someone close to you. and similar. And that made me think about, and I have actually talked about this with some of my friends, what is the distinction between soul, soul hurt, and, for example, heartache. And I think, or at least my instinct is that things, uh, things about around soul are more deep, I would say, something that touches you very, very deeply in your core, something tied to your identity, maybe, to the core of your life. And heartache, although I guess it can be something that touches the soul as well, of course, isn't always that. But all of this brings the question, what can we do about, our bleeding soul, if I put it like that? Maybe just asking yourself this question can be a great start to see if your soul is bleeding, because I think sometimes we just don't realize we get stuck in a routine, just again and again doing the same things over, just living on autopilot. And sometimes we need a bit of a wake-up call. So starting with this question, why not, it might make you realize that at least in some areas maybe you are not really that fulfilled, or you are not fulfilled, you are actually, I don't know, hurting your soul. And then of course try to identify what's it all about. If your soul is hurting, if you're, if you are betraying your core identity, or maybe your core values, why is that? Why is it happening? Why do you feel like that? Try to evaluate what you are doing in your everyday life, what might not be aligned with the person you want to be, and then of course work on that. If it's relationships, if it's your job, if it's not having any creative or artistic outlet, but deep down you know that you crave one, things like that. Of course it can be whatever, but just exploring this topic I think can be worthwhile. And then of course this whole part might have sounded very depressing, talking about soul crushing experiences and what it means, and the loneliness, the grayness of life, and existential chores and whatnot. I think it's also good to remember that it can work in the other way around. There are many things that I would say the common expression is that touch your soul in a good way. For me, myself, I think it can be, or I can find that in some art, whether it be music, whether it be maybe a poem, or a really, really good story that just, touches you in your core again. And not only you can feel through that something positive, something fulfilling, you can learn from that as well. And that might also highlight the way for you to live your life more purposefully, and to distance yourself from those things that make your soul bleed. I guess also now, after exploring a bit what is soul crushing to us, what makes our soul bleed, the expression selling your soul to the devil also becomes a bit clearer. Uh, I can, for example, imagine a scenario where you have a very, very high paying job, but deep down you realize that the job isn't something that is fulfilling to you. Quite the opposite, it is something that you dread, that you actually don't like doing, and you feel like you are wasting your time. But because there are the advantages of having a high paying job, having a lot of money is nothing. You are convincing yourself that this is a good job, I am doing everything good for myself, and I will stay here because this is a great opportunity, etc., etc. But I think if you continue down this road, this trajectory, then I don't know, maybe after 10, 20 years, when you are older and you look back, you realize that sure, money is nice, but perhaps you should have done something differently, something that would fulfill you, that would, well, touch your soul, something more aligned with your purpose. And again, this can be a sort of a nudge to explore all these things in your own life. Last but not least, something I would like to mention, what I might have forgotten in the beginning when naming all the things that come to my mind when thinking about this question, is witnessing true tragedy and misery of other human beings. I feel there is something in us that, on a deep human level, connects us to other human beings, to other people, and then witnessing their pain, their loss, their tragedy, especially on a large scale, is again something that just crushes us inside a little. I don't want to get political, but for example, from recent years, witnessing the horrors that are happening on Ukraine, the bombing of children and whatnot, that is definitely something that, at least for me, makes my soul bleed a little, to use that expression again. And I think that's all from me for now. I would be really interested in hearing what you think about this topic. I know this episode has been mainly just me rambling and venting my thoughts, but I couldn't pass the opportunity because I just find this topic very interesting and it made me pause this question, so I wanted to share that. And hopefully you found something interesting in it as well. So that's it from me, and see ya. Bye.